Wanna help the channel? Click on the affiliate links in the description for Amazon products. Hello guys, once again it's Matt, and today we're going to make a quick video on some of the statistics on this spreadsheet. I don't know who made this spreadsheet, but it's pretty useful in general. We're going to talk about the top tiers, of course, and the spreadsheet is basically the sustained turn rate in War Thunder for many jets, basically just jets, and the G that you can pull in that speed. So as you see, the amount of speed and the degrees per second that it can turn, and the amount of G's with the speed over here. We have another stuff here, but it's not ready yet. And here we have the turn time, but I don't care about this. Full circle, of course, and some of the data on how G's work depending on the speed. But let's get to it. Subscribe, make sure to subscribe. Let's get to the USA first of all. So the US, the main aircraft that they have is F-4s and the F-5, and let's compare them to the aircraft that they are facing and the aircraft that they are facing against them and stuff like that. So let's start with the Americans. So they have the F-4E and the F-4J. As you see, the F-4, as you see here, we have a better turn rate on 30 minutes of fuel at 500 knots. But the F-4J without the weapons can actually turn a little bit better, and that's because of the weight of the gun. So the E, of course, even with these slats, has the gun on the nose, and that gets a little bit problematic just with comparing to the F-4J without the guns, of course. But in general, the F-4J will be worse than that, worse than the F-4E, because if you take the Mark, I think it's the Mark 11 cannon, it will be problematic. Okay, it takes a lot of the turn of the aircraft in general, and the F-5, as you see, the best turn ratio that you can have is actually at 350 knots. So pretty interesting to see this. Pretty good turn rate in general, way better than the F5E as you see because of the new engines. And let's compare them to the main rival of the F4s and the F5s, the MiG-21s and MiG-23s. As you see, the F4J is pretty comparable to the MiG-21 in general. But it takes a punch from the MiG-23s. As you see, the MiG-23, this is sustained turn, of course. It takes a while for the MiG-23 actually to sweep the wings back, but in general, the MiG will have a better turn ratio, especially the MLD. The MLD is the best aircraft in top tier. There's one aircraft that it loses, and it's the Sukhoi M2, just because it has swept wing, variable sweep wing as well. But the MLD can win, I mean, basically at 450, it can maintain almost 20 degrees with almost with 8 Gs, as you see, and the F4s can only take like 6, 7 maybe. So this is sustained, of course. It can vary a little bit on the first or two turns that you do on a one circle, maybe one of the 360-degree turns, and then you're going to end up losing it for the MLD. But in general, try to not dogfight MiG-23s and any aircraft in general. The Viggen and other aircraft, of course, they always win against the F4. So be careful. You have two amazing engines, so just speed up and go away. Okay. For Germany, the idea is the same on the F4F, of course. Has basically the same turn ratio and stuff. So yeah, just be careful. Not having BVR can screw you a little bit, and so don't try to out-turn the MiG-23. Make sure to see tomorrow's video, as I'm going to show the F4F against the MiG-23 MF, and it's just a very, I mean, it's complicated. The F4 is a very complicated aircraft. It's a very well-around aircraft, but it has its problems. And of course, the MiG-21 bis and the MiG-23 of the Germans, of course, they have the same thing. So yeah, for USSR, of course, we have the MLD. As you see, I already said that it can win basically against everything. Even the Viggen, as you see, as a sustained turn, you're going to end up winning. So yeah, the Soviets have a very capable aircraft right now, the MLD, and of course the MiG-23M, of course, is a lot. It's a great aircraft still. So just be careful against the Soviets, and if you are the Soviets, try to push. If you don't have any BVR missiles, try to follow them. Try to make them turn. Even if you are in a dangerous situation in the first two turns or in the first full circle, you're going to end up winning eventually with the sustained turn, which is one of the best. Make loops, make the aircraft of the enemy lose a lot of energy really fast. Okay, the G's are already said. The Great Britain, of course, has a little bit better turn ratio in against the other F4s. As you see, it's because of the engine, of course, but this is without the guns. So with the guns, it probably is worse than the F-4E. But without it, the way that I use it, it's going to be a little bit better than F-4E. So yeah, it's not as bad as you think. This is because of the amazing Rolls-Royce engines, which makes this aircraft trust his way to a dogfight mode basically. So, but still worse than everything else. The acceleration is pretty good. So, my advice when using Phantoms, try to stay fast. If somebody pulls you into a dogfight, just try to run away. It's really dangerous to dogfight in a forest against basically everything. If you fight against the Viggen, you're going to lose. If you fight against the MLD, you're going to lose. The MiG-23M, you're going to lose. Basically the Draken, the MiG-21, basically every aircraft in the game, besides other F4. So just try to maintain your speed, okay? Of course, there's a lot of things that go on a dogfight, and this is not the only thing, but this is one of the things that you have to worry about, okay? Japan, of course, has the EJ, which can be a really problematic one in general, because it doesn't have the slats. Here we don't have the information about it, but because it doesn't have the slats, and it's basically an E, it has the cannon on the nose. It's heavier than this. It has the same engine, so it's a little bit worse than this. Okay, so in general, don't try to dogfight in the EJ in general. Okay. It's an amazing aircraft in BVR because of the APG-66, the F-16 radar, but in general, it's not the greatest in dogfights, okay? You're going to end up in a situation that you have to choose between running and dogfighting, and if you know, use this spreadsheet. I'm going to leave it in the description. If you have this spreadsheet, have this in mind. It's not the only thing, of course, but it's a general idea on should you go into a dogfight or not? If you're going to be in a disadvantage, just try to run for your friendlies, and there's no shame on it. Just don't try to dogfight. Don't try to die. Okay. Another country, of course, China has the F-5A, which is a pretty amazing aircraft in general. In general, it's a little bit worse than the MLD, but it's probably one of the only aircraft together with the Viggen that can actually face the MLD in a sustained turn dogfight. So yeah, in general, if the MLD knows what he's doing and go for loops, every aircraft here, even maybe the Viggen not and maybe the Kfir, but every aircraft besides those probably going to lose the energy before the MLD, and you're going to end up dying for the MLD. So be careful, okay? Um, China also have the J-7E, which is one of the most advanced aircraft in dogfight because of the weird design of a two-time double delta wing. So in general, the cannon is probably pretty problematic, and the missiles are alright. They're not amazing, but still very capable aircraft in a dogfight. I still think I mean, it would win against any F4. Basically, it would win against an F5, against the MiG-21s, the normal ones, and probably be comparable to the Viggen, a little bit better than the Viggen probably, and comparable to the MiG-23M. So in my list, I would put the MiG-23M LD as the most dogfightable aircraft in the game. After that, the MiG-23M. After that, the Kfir and the Viggen, and the J7, and then the Viggen, of course. Of course, I'm talking about sustained turn. If you're going to do one turn and get the guy, Mirage can be the most amazing aircraft in the game. So you have to be careful with that, okay? But yeah, that's for China. Let's get to Sweden. So Sweden has two aircraft that are very amazing, the Draken and the Viggen. They're pretty, in general, they're pretty good. They have a very strong engine, both of them. But the Draken turns so well in instantaneous turn that it loses a lot of speed with delta wing, and it makes not having the greatest sustained turn, but still very amazing, kind of comparable to the MiG-23M. So a Viggen, the Draken, the problem with the Draken is the systems and it doesn't have flares. So before you get to a dogfight, you're probably going to die for a missile. But if you get to a dogfight, you can maintain the aircraft in general. If you're going to face a J-35, of course, don't turn with it. Uh, um, just if you are a MiG-23, J-7E, some aircraft like that, then you can turn. But even with that, the instantaneous turn of this aircraft can be a very difficult thing to deal with initially on a dogfight. The Viggen, it's a little bit worse, but it has a lot more speed. So in general, it can maintain the kind of the same amount of G's as you see here, and kind of a little bit less of the turn ratio at high speeds. So try to maintain more speed in the Draken, like 500 knots, 450, and you can win basically against any aircraft if you know what you're doing. But in general, be careful with the MLDs. As I said before, pretty the most amazing aircraft in a sustained dogfight. Okay. Um, so Italy, of course, has the F-104. I'm not gonna even talk about. Look at the F-104. Look at the G's that it can take. Like, I mean, it's because of the speed, but yeah, look at this, 2.8, 3.8. I mean, this is just really bad. So I'm not gonna talk about it because you're not gonna be dogfighting with the F-104. But an interesting fact is that it's in certain speeds, depending on the speed, it's comparable to the F4 to see that how much the F4 is bad at dogfighting. So you have to be careful with that if you're using the F4. And France, of course, doesn't have a very top tier aircraft yet, but it has the Mirages, which are pretty bad at sustained turn. It loses a lot of speed with the delta wing, but it has a very good instantaneous turn. So if you can fight an aircraft that you can actually out-turn in the first turn or the first part of the circle, you can do it. It's the best part of the Mirage is the turn ratio, the turn rate, but not in a sustained manner. So the thing is, you're going to die a lot because you're going to try to turn a lot and then you're going to get really slow and the aircraft takes a lot to get speed. So the Mirage 3 and the Mirage 5 and the Nesher are pretty problematic in this manner because the engine is really weak in general. It's a really old engine in general, so it even loses to the MiG-21 F-13. I mean, the Mirage 3 even loses to the C because it's a little bit heavier. So it's kind of comparable even to the F-104 in a sustained manner. The F-104 can win in a sustained manner. So the Mirage loses a lot of speed, a lot of speed. So this is a very dangerous aircraft to fly if you do not know what you're doing and you just turn a lot. Okay, it's an aircraft that I really don't like to fly, but yeah, in general you can do well in it, but it's a hard aircraft to fly. Of course, it has a 10.3 BR right now, so yeah. But last but not least, we talked about some of the Mirages. We have the Nesher, the Kfir, and the F-4E of the Israeli tech tree. Of course, the F-4E, we already talked about it. Be careful with everything, basically, in a dogfight. Of course, in this video, we're talking about dogfights, so yeah. But we have the Kfir. The Nesher is the same as the Mirage 5, but the Kfir is pretty amazing aircraft in general. It has a pretty all-around good sustained turn because it has a very good Mirage fuselage, but with the Phantom engine, the J79, so it can sustain a lot of things. The thing about the Kfir is that you can actually out accelerate the MiG-23 MLD, so you can try to dogfight it, and if you lose a lot of speed, the MiG-23, you can actually outrun it, and with the flares, you can actually be safe and outrun the MiG, so and get speed again and try to get the instantaneous rate again. Of course, the instantaneous rate of all these aircraft are probably better than the MiG-23 because it takes a while to the aircraft to slow down and open its wings. So in general, it's a pretty good idea to use it as a kind of a kryptonite to the MiG-23 MLD in performance. Of course, you don't have the great missiles of the MiG-23, and you don't have BVR in general, so and a good radar. But the performance-wise, it's a kind of a kryptonite to the MiG-23. I'm going to do a dogfight with them in the future. But basically, this is it. I'm going to leave this spreadsheet in the description. Um, Make sure to compare to some of the aircraft that you fly and against an aircraft that you face, and make sure to keep an eye out because you know the F-14, for example, have a very similar number. The A have a very similar number to this, so yeah, we could be seeing F-14s in the future, in the very close future. So yeah, but I hope you enjoyed. Try to make this as short as possible, but it's really hard. It's a lot of information, but I see you guys on the next one, and bye guys, subscribe.